Everyone. David Nichtern, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. And I kind of wanted to give a little introduction to how we kind of met and how I heard about you a little bit. And that was through the Midnight Gospel and Duncan Trussell and Pete Holmes and just everywhere, man. You're in so many really broad and different uh, um, types of art and different styles. Very nice. Um, but yeah, and then I also kind of joined you on a one-on-one a little bit earlier, and that's how we officially met earlier this year when I was in UT Dallas. So yeah, you are a Buddhist master. That's
No,
very.
no,
Oh no,
no.
okay.
Teacher,
Oh, teacher, and there's
student
a
and teacher.
difference.
Yeah, anybody who says
Student
they're
teacher.
a master uh, should have their head examined.
You know,
There's always so much more to learn, you know?
there is. And that kind of brings me to one of the questions. Duncan recommended the book Progressive Stages of Meditation on Emptiness, which
Oh, yeah.
I had to read. It's at first it was tough, but it gets better and better. And one of the concepts is that you have to learn before you meditate. There's
hmm
stages, right? There's different stages. It's a very
hmm
structured thing. And I did pop up the question like, let's say you do learn everything. Now you're in the meditation stage. You pass the meditation stage, and now you are maybe that's where you are, maybe in the teaching stage, or is that just the meditation stage just never ends?
Yeah. First of all, that's a very advanced book in
Hmm.
terms of the progression of Buddhist teaching. So that's dealing with some fairly nuanced and subtle topics. Sorry for that phone ringing in the background.
Oh, can't hear
I'm
it.
just, oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So the two things we could differentiate between is the study and sort of acquainting yourself with what they call technically the view, the perspective, the intellectual perspective on the topic, and then the actual practice. And those are feeding off each other the whole way through. So it's perfectly fine to start practicing meditation early on, and there are so many simple and foundational practices. And then at the same time, you're developing your intellectual understanding. Those two are cross-pollinating each other. So I wouldn't
Hmm.
say one has to come before the other. They're more like two wings of a bird, would be the way I would look at it.
That is so good to hear because I have been meditating way before I, you know, read into any books or anything. And it does kind of give you a frame of reference a little bit once you start meditating. But talking a little bit about stages of meditation, how, like, for example, with music or a muscle, whenever you're practicing guitar a lot, one thing people don't tell you is that your fingers will start making this callus.
hmm
That at first it looks so ugly and it hurts, but that's how you know you're getting better because it doesn't hurt anymore.
hmm
But with
Well,
yeah.
it doesn't mean you're necessarily getting better. It means you're getting more capable of playing strongly with some, feeling of ease, at least at the physical level.
Right.
You could have like 10-inch calluses and still not be able to play like a melody,
That's a
or a
great
song.
point. That's a
Yeah.
great
So,
point.
yeah. So of course you know, the there's a famous story actually in the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism about Milarepa, and he gives his final uh, lesson to his one of his principal students, uh, and the lesson is he just lifted up his robe and showed him the calluses on his butt from sitting so much. Talk about calluses on your finger. So there is some, and that's the Kagyu lineage. That's called the practice lineage. There is some, good case to be made for doing a lot of practice, but without the clarity of mind about what the method is and what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going about it, you could just end up with just a lot of calluses on your butt or on your fingers for that
Ah.
matter.
But how do you build calluses in your like mental,
Uh, it,
spiritual?
okay, so that's a great question, Eric. The equivalent of a callus in terms of you doing psychological work, internal work, would be the notion, I think, of resilience, developing some kind of strength of mind. And that would be your ability to return to baseline functioning fairly regularly, even if you get very pulled away by passion or by aggression. Your ability to recognize your state of mind and come back to a state of present awareness is almost like a kind of, we call it a mindfulness muscle, like a strength that you develop.
Oh,
And really the word is resilience that's used a lot. So yeah, and you can feel that. One of the things people describe if they start to do mindfulness meditation practice a fair amount is the ability to be less reactive, to go down the rabbit hole less frequently with wild emotion and sort of, fear, panic, doubt, anxiety, that they can come back to the baseline more consistently. So that might be the equivalent of a callus, in that regard, as using it as a metaphor.
wow.
But it doesn't mean you become calloused. That's be the wrong understanding, or tough or hardened.
Right.
You become resilient, but you stay soft and open.
Okay. Yes. Okay. That is also really interesting. That reminds me of like a few things, but I want to maybe talk about a little bit about how the middle way, a lot of the things that
Mhm.
like I'm in Duncan's meditation group. Well, he hasn't done it so much recently, but we used to meditate once a week together, and
Wonderful. Yeah. Wow.
so wonderful. Like literally one of like peak experiences in my life every single week. It's so crazy. But it reminded me, I'm sorry if this is very like naive, but it reminded me of the Karate Kid movie, of how Mr. Miyagi says that you either do karate or you don't do karate. But if you stay in the middle, you'll get squished like a grape. Kind of like, but I understand that
Hmm.
in meditation, it's not too tight, not too loose, kind of like right in the middle.
Right. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
that's sweet in a way. Um, yeah. So the middle way that you're talking about is an avoidance of extremes. So that you can, like you said, not too tight, not too loose, which we say at Dharma Moon in our
Mm.
teacher training program all the time. Not too tight, not too loose. Upright, but not uptight. Principles, not rules. Right. So these are all ways of, you know, by the way, I want to apologize for the sunglasses, but I have a slight eye infection, so I didn't want to freak everybody out.
Oh no, I
Uh,
love it. Luke, I
yeah,
thought you were doing it because you thought it
I'm
was a
not trying
cool
to be.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to look at it that way, you're pleased to.
They look good.
Yes. So the middle way, I saw this. I like Instagram videos. I'm quite, uh, you know, amused by Instagram, like that little 1 minute burst of something and somebody's an incredible athlete or a musician, or, all kinds of wonderful things on it, I think.
Or a Buddhist teacher.
Yeah, Buddhist teacher. Yeah. Okay. I've been exposed to some incredible, I've learned about some new things out there for sure. But I saw a guy bowling, you know, and, I don't know if people still bowl anymore. It used to be a big thing. Have you ever gone bowling?
Of course. No, I mean, not as much as in America, honestly. I do it
Yeah.
more when I travel.
Okay. Well, everybody I think knows the reference. And this guy just walked up to the thing, you could kind of feel it, and just deposited it in the gutter. You know how people do that. The ball goes 3 or 4 feet and then it's in the gutter. And once it's in the gutter the whole way through. You're not going to knock over any
Mm.
pins. So, in a way, the bowling is good because it's got the left gutter and the right gutter. And it's a good way to show the middle way is that number one pin is right in the middle in the sweet spot. Uh, you know, so I think that notion of pacing ourselves, things like patience, things like discipline, qualities that are not really touted so much anymore. Everybody's looking for
Mm.
the fast lane, you know, and this idea of steady application of effort, uh, building up your understanding over time, being patient with yourself, in terms of how you feel you're doing. Those are tremendous virtues and kind of not the most popular ones anymore.
Mm.
I'll bring them back. I vote for bringing them back.
I don't know. Like it makes me think that maybe, like sure, social media does give you that like dopamine rush that's almost immediate. But I don't know. It seems that all of these Buddhist books and stuff, they talk about like the same stuff. It's still like,
Oh yeah.
it's weird how
Yes.
like that the nature of kind of the problem is kind of the same throughout the years. Do you think that?
Eric, it's funny. I saw the Dalai Lama once in Beacon Theater in New York, and somebody asked a question. Uh, you're talking about these. He was doing elaboration of a text that was from the 10th century, and somebody asked him, "Well, Your Holiness, hasn't anything changed since it's like it's 1100 years later? Aren't we in a different? Haven't things really changed?" And he said, "Not really."
Yeah.
The basic thing, father and mother, a son. Do you have a job? Do you have do you have a partner? Are we gonna have to feed you forever? Are you gonna get it together? People find their way, they lose their way, they explore things, they get excited, they get disappointed. The human psychology hasn't, according to him, at that question, changed all that much. And then he said, Eric, he said one kind of funny thing. He said, except maybe one exception, which he said, science, technology, over the
Ooh.
next 100 years or 150 years may produce new paradigm. Uh, you know,
Wow.
and we'll see, because right now, of course, Duncan and I have talked about this online about AI and so forth. It's a very interesting topic.
Of
There was
course.
just, as of today, Elon Musk was suing
OpenAI.
ChatGPT for, that they have developed an AGI and aren't talking about it, Um, so we don't know, and people get thrilled with that. But I'm a real student of human nature, and I think I
Hmm.
could observe and document that people are impatient, are looking for the short road, and in general, the ones who apply steady discipline and application of their intelligence and their effort are notably the ones who will develop the most profound skills and contributions.
Right.
Mixed with some fire and some inspiration, sure, some kind
Hmm.
of talent, but um,
Yeah.
I guess I might be old school in that way.
Yeah, right. Like the classic tale, slow and steady wins the race, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if I don't know if slow and steady would win the 100-meter dash, though.
Hmm.
You have to know what race you're running.
Right. It reminds me of the horse's story that you want to be the the very lazy horse. You want to be the worst type of horse because if you're the best horse, then watch out because you're not looking for ways to improve. And
Well,
um
that's why you asked me about mastery. I use that word very hesitatingly. There are people I would apply that word to, that I would consider masters, but I wouldn't consider myself in that category. No way.
yeah.
I'm a fairly earnest student. I like to work with people and help people. I'm getting older, so I like to pass it along before I can't. You know, but I think if you have any kind of accomplishment, one of the shining marks of it would be humbleness, humility, without a doubt.
Mm, okay. I see. And these qualities seem to be um like throughout the years kind of like the same. Like the Dharma, that can't really change, right?
Yeah. One of the most profound iterations of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma in this case, is that everything changes.
Oh, including the Dharma?
Now you're messed up. So if the Dharma doesn't change, but the Dharma proclaims that everything
Everything
changes,
changes.
there's a little bit of a puzzle there to solve, isn't there?
Wow. Yeah, exactly. And it kind of reminds me of a little bit of kind of like the Holy Trinity. There's a story in the Bible that says there's this kid who's putting buckets of water into a hole in the beach. And I forgot, this saint goes up to him and it's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm trying to put all of the water in the ocean in this tiny hole." And he said, "You know that's impossible, right?" And he said, "It's more possible for me to put all of the water in the ocean in this hole than it is for you to understand what the Holy Trinity is."
Oh, well, I wasn't raised in that tradition. Were you?
I was, yeah.
So what meaning does that have for you then? What does that mean?
That meaning for me, it kind of represents that, like some things, like the paradox of how the Dharma claims that everything changes but doesn't change, or the paradox that, for example, um, Jesus came and he would say that I am God. You know, he
Hmm.
would claim that he was God.
Hmm. In
And
those words, in such words?
yeah, he would say, I am God, and don't, there's no one else than me. And
Mm.
right? And that makes me very curious, like, because it brings
Was
me
he,
to
was he, was he, Eric, was he saying, I am God and you are as well? Or no?
no,
No. Okay.
no,
Wow.
he was saying, I'm the only God. But he was saying that him and his father are also one. And that's where kind of the Holy Trinity comes in. It's really hard to understand. That's what that kind of, and I do here's another way I looked at it, David. This reality is a dream. And let's say that Jesus was trying to make only certain people understand the Holy Trinity, or that he wasn't God, or that he was God. And maybe the way that he chose the way that he would do these teachings, and I don't know if the Buddha did this, if he chose certain people to teach Dharma to. I mean, Jesus got killed, you know, and I feel like if he's God, he could have avoided that somehow. But but he chose not to because maybe their people were so asleep that he didn't want to wake them up. He wanted to respect their dream.
So since we live in a very multifaceted world regarding religion, philosophy, belief systems, you know, first of all, I like to take the approach. The first question I would ask any tradition, any master, any great teacher, any saint,
Any
is it
Dharma.
okay? Is it okay to ask questions or not? And
Mm.
that differentiates, in the Buddhist sense, we would call that non-theistic. And it's sort of a little bit of a, taking a little bit of a leap to say that non-theism means you can ask questions. Uh, but it seems very important that if somebody is presenting a doctrine that is not questionable, it cannot be Buddhism. It could be other things, but it cannot be Buddhism.
Wow.
And the Buddha is saying, whatever you think of my level of understanding, realization, manifestation is, um, you need, you must find out for yourself by processing whatever it is I'm saying through the lens of your own experience.
Hmm.
So this is a very different tradition from a certain point of view. My
Yeah.
teacher used to say, your guess is as good as mine. It doesn't mean the person can't carry tremendous weight and you respect them. Like I'm one of the people um, who would hold the view that the Buddhist teachings, the way the Buddha iterated the teachings, are perfectly iterated. There is
Hmm.
no flaw in it. As far as I can tell, it's flawless. But it's never presented as, therefore it becomes the kind of doctrine of just believing in it, and then therefore you're liberated from the need to verify. So, in any kind of system that I am drawn to, there's the notion of verification, or like you say, you got a guitar right there, right?
Yep.
And everybody's saying, okay, man, Eric is the greatest guitar player. Eric Clapton's nothing, B.B. King's nothing, uh, you know, um,
George Harrison,
Jimi Hendrix, nothing. Eric
Gilmore.
is Eric is the guy. And I go to Eric and I say, Eric, pick up that guitar and show us. And that'll be, that'll be the moment at which we assess. So I think verification is very important in spiritual practice. It's undervalued a lot of the times. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a smart ass and you know better than everybody. It doesn't mean that at all. It
Right.
means that you're respectful and you're humble. But when
Yeah.
you receive a teaching, you chew it and see if it's verifiable and if it maps
Mm.
to your experience. Otherwise, I see a lot of potential damage from too much blind faith,
That is so fascinating, David. And here's what I was thinking, and I'm gonna try to ask this in the most respectful way. When we look at nature, for example, I love the example of the metaphor and the metamorphosis of the caterpillar into the butterfly. I think that's an crazy example of faith because the caterpillar quite literally doesn't know that it's not actually dying. It's actually becoming a butterfly, but it's making its own coffin. But no one's even telling it like, hey,
Yeah,
trust me that this is gonna happen. But
sure.
it's a they have this unique like they can't ask the butterfly like, hey, so are you sure? Can you prove me that you were a caterpillar before?
Right.
It's like
Well,
no,
of
they
course,
had it's like in their nature.
you can't even prove to me that you were Eric yesterday, the exact same thing. I don't know if you can prove that, but and we also don't know what the caterpillar knows or doesn't know about it. And we don't know at what level. Like, for example, I think the idea of different levels is very important, of knowing that you know certain things because they're mappable to a kind of linear process of understanding, right? Like you know how to maybe build a house or paint a wall or something like that, build a cabinet. And then you know certain things at a more intuitive level, like you just kind of feel it, let's say, more in the feeling zone. And then you know certain other things without having any idea how you know them.
Right.
Like, how do you know about love? Do you know how you know about love?
No.
Right? And you feel it, but it's something beyond that where there could be a level of knowing that we don't know that we know.
I have a better one for you. Hate.
Oh
We're
boy.
experts with hate.
Yeah, but we don't really know where it comes from, because if we did, that would be the end of it,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. That's
It would
right.
be
We
the
don't.
last day for that. So that's why in meditation practice, we try to practice awareness of our own mind process. Mindfulness means that
Mm.
you're literally aware of your own mental process. You don't just buy into the content of it as if it's already printed. You see it as a
Ah.
dynamic process, and you actually realize that you have a perch, sometimes called the witness or the abstract watcher, from which you can see your own mental process without engaging in without buying into it or going down the rabbit hole with it. So you would see the hatred, you would see the process of hating someone as if it was you were watching a movie instead of being in the
Mm.
movie.
Whoa. Right.
You
Okay.
can
Yeah,
see your own
that makes
mind. If you can't
sense.
see your own mind, there's not much point in meditating.
Right. Yeah. Right. That makes sense. Um, Looking at it from the outside. And I really love that movie metaphor because I mean, besides of the idea that I'm the main character, I think it's fascinating the idea that we are watching a movie and we identified with the character. Maybe it's such a good movie that you really made believe that you were the character on the screen. And that kind of brings me to like a question that I had about that. It's kind of like a chicken or the egg question, David. Did we walk into the movie theater, sit down, and just started watching a movie and slowly forgot that we were not we were not like the person sitting watching the movie when we were actually the movie? Or was it more that like there was a movie that was just there, and we kind of like slowly started realizing that uh that the movie is real, or like we are in the movie. And I don't know, that's kind of a non-digested question.
Yeah, we're as far as I can make out, we're creating the movie right now. It's an ongoing process. It's not
Oh.
like we made a movie and we're watching it. The movie is like we're in production, continuously, and and then there's some sense that something happened in the past, right? Most of us have a notion of some kind of past existence. What's really funny to me, Eric, is that you think, well, people are very uncertain about the future, like what's going to happen, what happens to me after I die, what happens. But
Yeah.
how many people do you know ask what happened to me before I was born?
Mm,
We
yeah.
we don't look back with the same degree of curiosity, and there is probably an argument you could make um, that everything is happening right now, and that's the only
Mm,
time anything is happening.
right.
Because when you talk about the past, you're really talking about memories
Mm,
that are part of a mental process. Obviously, that mental process is happening now. If you get Alzheimer's, it's not happening now. You can't remember what happened in the past. So there is, your sense of past is erased. So our notion of past is clearly a mental activity called memory that's happening in the present. And our anticipation of the future is also a mental activity that's happening in the present. So I think it'd be hard to
mm,
demonstrate anything other than the existence of the present, and that might even yield to
yes.
careful scrutiny as not being existent either.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Duncan told me one time, I asked him a question. I was like, how do you recommend any strategies for coming back into the moment? And you want to know what he told me, David? He said, try to escape the moment. Try to get away from the moment. And you realize that you can't.
Well, we do by freezing very powerful imagery of the past and the future as if it was happening now. That's what trauma is. You freeze something that happened in the past as if
Oh.
it's happening now. But it's your present system of cognition operates in the present moment. Your body is operating in the present moment. You're breathing in the present moment. You're thinking in the present moment. Uh, you're moving in the present moment. And it's even so precise that in some teachings they say even the present is questionable that way because what did you mean this present or did you mean
Mm,
this one or did you mean this one? You know,
right.
so they call it the fourth moment. There's the
That's
past,
right.
present, and future, and then the fourth moment, which is neither past, present, nor future, but is this kind of sense of awareness that is simultaneously extremely present, but also feels timeless at the same time.
And do you think that that could be maybe what the Buddha is, that state of
The Buddha is that
presence?
space. That's really, particularly what they call the Dharmakaya aspect of the Buddha, is just that space of awareness that is primordial. It exists outside of time. And it
Right.
and,
And
and it interacts with time, but it really the nature of it is timeless.
yeah, and in the I think it was Pema Chodron's book, I forget which one. I love her books, where she talks about how coming into an open relationship with yourself in the moment is coming into an open relationship with the Buddha right now, as you
Well,
are.
the Buddha is an interesting. It's so interesting to think about the Buddha
The Buddha. Yeah.
because really what most people mean by the Buddha is Shakyamuni Buddha, which is the guy, the Indian, you know, teacher who
Siddhartha.
lived 25, Siddhartha lived 2,500 years ago, and there's a narrative attached to that person's. But if you dive into this a little deeper, uh, he's not actually the Buddha, he's a Buddha.
Oh.
And there are others.
Oh,
And
right.
and then there's the notion of Buddha itself as meaning just awakened mind is also called could be called Buddha
Bodhis
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
bodhicitta,
Bodhicitta, okay.
and that everybody has some access to that. Uh, Depending on the level to which there's some recognition or realization of that aspect of your experience, that anybody's a Buddha, everybody's a Buddha. So I
Right.
think that's very different. Like a good, um, if I am a Buddhist teacher and I look at you and I don't recognize that you're a Buddha, I can't really teach you anything.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. Whoa. And that kind of messes up a little bit of this question that I was going to ask you about the saying that says, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Yeah. I personally don't say that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a
it's a
it's a Zen,
Oh, it's
Zen
sin.
and Chan
Okay.
Buddhism in China are kind of the most, in a way, extreme expressions of the abruptness of the
Yeah.
experience of the awakened mind. So what it literally means, and anybody will tell you this, is if you become fascinated with some external individual as they have the key and you'll never have it, you should destroy that idea.
Right, because you're not looking at yourself as a possible Buddha anymore, maybe.
Well, or just you've attached too much identity to that other person. So you should undercut that sense of solidification or, overcooking the goose there. But I've met, some great teachers, and that's the last thing I'd ever think of doing would be killing them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
I
fantastic
would
point.
take really good care of them, actually. So I don't, I get what the meaning of it is, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's sort of, it's trying to cut through a notion of fixation that Zen is actually very good at cutting through that element
Mm.
of just like get right through to it. Um, and like in Zen, a lot of times you can't move when you meditate. Did you know that?
And what about with Buddhism? You can do all kinds of meditation.
Well,
Is
no,
that the
no, it
idea?
depends on the lineage and the tradition. It's better to
Oh,
move less.
okay.
It's
Oh,
better to
okay.
have a stable posture and sort of reduce distractions and kind of fidgetiness. But if your knee is killing, in our tradition, middle way, if your knee is killing you, you can just, rather than making a big drama or making yourself a hero, you just shift your position very quickly and just let the blood come back in, and try to not give in to every urge to do that. And then there's traditions in which people say you can just lie down or go to sleep or swim or whatever you want to do or listen to music. So again, that middle way thing that you raised is like being diligent but reasonable.
Right. Yes. Um, Talking about uh how bodhicitta and the Buddhism and the Buddha, a Buddha, can be
Mhm.
interpreted as a quality of mind, a present moment. It kind of brings me to the idea of religion and lineage. Like,
Mm.
shouldn't this present moment and experiences with yourself and um uh yeah, yourself, and shouldn't that be in, like, isn't the present the destination, or do we really, there's the idea of switching boats, right, from lineages, and you can't really go anywhere unless you stay on the boat. But what I don't understand is, why isn't the present moment enough? Like, why do we need boats? What are the boats? Where are they
Yeah,
leading
why do we
to?
need boats? That's
Yeah.
good. A good title for your book.
Yeah.
Why do we need boats? What's funny, Eric, right now I am looking out my window. I'm in New York City, and my apartment happens to look out on the East River.
Oh,
Beautiful view,
beautiful.
like
Yeah.
big view of the East River. So for those of you who don't know New York, I'm in Manhattan on the East River, and that's Queens and Brooklyn over there. And there right now, as I said, that a ferry is going across from the port here at about 34th Street over into a destination in Brooklyn, and that's one. Otherwise, you'd have to drive all the way around to get to it, across one of the bridges. So boats.
Mm.
Then there are helicopters that do the same thing. You can get a helicopter from the heliport here and fly all the way out to Long Island in about half an hour.
Right, and those are
Um,
psychedelics.
well, okay, we didn't get there yet, and
Okay, okay.
yeah, we can go there, but um, so the question is, where is the boat going,
Hmm.
And in this case, at a very practical level, you're in Manhattan, you want to get to Brooklyn, you need a boat. If you're in Brooklyn already and you think, I want to get to Brooklyn, you might just need a little more attention to where you actually
Ah,
already are. So, it's interesting you're talking about this because I was thinking about this idea of path. Where's the path going? And it's relative. It's very relative. Like there's going to be a path for you with that guitar there for you to become Segovia or it's a classical guitar. You're not going to just pick it up and say, I could be Segovia. I inherently, potentially a great classical guitar player. But no, there's a path you're going to have to practice. Then you could be.
right.
So there's no real easy way around it, I'm afraid.
Right. I love I think it's a Zen, another Zen saying. I'm sorry I'm bombarding you with these Zen sayings, but it's to the before you're a student, mountains are mountains, waters are waters, rivers are rivers. To the student, waters are no longer waters, mountains are no longer mountains, rivers are no longer rivers. To the after student or whatever, to the practice student, master student, whatever you want to call it, mountains are once again mountains, waters are once
Yeah.
again waters, and rivers are once again rivers. Or Ramdas also says, all we're trying to do here is trying to get back to the place where we were before we got lost.
Yeah, it's all depends. Language is a funny thing. It depends what
Ah,
somebody hears and understands. So they said the Buddha could speak every language. That's a literal thing that he was. But one wonders if it's just capacity to speak in ways in which people actually understand you. If you see people who are good with animals, they can communicate with animals. Doesn't mean that it's telepathic. It means they understand the
mm,
animal's mindset. And you see people talking to, let's say, kind of a more grounded, kind of, earthy kind of person, they speak a certain way. And then to artists, you speak a different way. To a business person, you'd speak a different way. So I think it depends what you're trying to communicate. And then can you find the way to not just enjoy your communication, but actually have it land on the other person's heart, mind, and ears.
mm,
And that's
yes,
compassion that makes you want to do that.
right. Wow. And yeah, maybe it's through these journeys that we can learn and grow and have that new quality in mind. Um, there's this joke that I wanted to tell you, David. It's I think this is I don't really know what lineage this is from, but there's this student standing on one end of the shore, and there's his guru standing on the other end of the shore, and he's yelling at him, "How do I get to the other side?" And the guru yells back, "You are on the other side."
Yeah, I tell that joke myself quite frequently.
Oh, maybe I heard it from you actually.
It's even possible, but however, all those now here's what I think is unique about Buddhism. I
Mhm.
could be I could be wrong about this, but Buddha did not start talking about a particular state of attainment. He talked about the current situation that is marked by suffering. So he actually sometimes the Buddha is called the great physician. That's one of the acronyms, and actually addressing where is somebody's discomfort, where is it coming from,
Mm.
and is it mitigatable? Is it something that could be removed? So I tend to look at the Buddhist path as removal of obscurations, habits, and let's say negative imprints that have become very strong in the consciousness, and freeing the person from those. So I tend to look at the first Four Noble Truths sermon as being having the whole essence of it, the the pervasiveness of suffering, the cause of suffering, the liberation from suffering, and the path to doing that. Like if I really love it, somebody just goes like, okay, that's where you start. Learn the Four Noble Truths first, you know, and then it doesn't start with there's this blissful state of eternal happiness.
That'd be awesome.
No, there are traditions that start that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they go, okay,
Cool.
you know, look, there's this place called
Yeah.
heaven, and we can get there.
Oh,
No, it starts what? So that's where like you like Pema's book, Start Where You Are. You know, and I go further. I like the precision of this. The four kinds of suffering are iterated. Do you know those? Have you ever heard those?
uh, I don't think so.
So there's uh, not getting what you want is the first one. Can you
Oh,
relate to that?
yes.
Getting what you don't want,
Oh.
like a tax audit, let's say.
Oh, okay, I see.
Third one is called the pain of alternation or fluctuation, which is just the very process of being human means you sort of you get what you want and then you lose it and then you get it again, you lose it. So you're kind of spinning. Anybody who's trying to fall in love could identify this. Like one day they call you back, the next day you're ghosted, you know. Then there's you heard from a friend, oh, they really like you, you know. So it's like that nauseating kind of roller coaster ride of expectation and disappointment. That's the third one. And then the fourth one is the all pervasive kind of, uh, you know, sort of uh, unshakable quality that something's just not quite right,
Oh, okay.
even on your best day.
Okay.
Like, for example, we just saw the Academy Awards, right?
Hmm.
So imagine all the people who got nominated but didn't win. That's the pain of
Oh,
alternation. Imagine the people who felt they deserved it and didn't get it. They didn't get what they wanted. Imagine
right.
the people who got what they didn't want, you know, which was, let's say they slipped on the red carpet
Oh.
and fell with all the cameras rolling. Uh, and if you look at that whole environment, which is a very high space from the human realm perspective, people are really have worked their whole lives to get there and a lot of good fortune and stuff. And maybe they made a speech in front of a billion people. They still go home that night and they feel a little bit like, I wish I'd said this and then that wasn't exactly right. And, you know, I had a smudge on my, you know, so there's just a pervasiveness of some kind of dissatisfaction. And
Wow.
I don't look at that as a way of making yourself miserable. That would be the wrong way to go about it. But it is, once you start paying attention to that and look where that comes from, that kind of dissatisfaction, you get much closer to some kind of insight
I see.
than by ignoring it or trying to bypass it.
Hmm. Right, because we're no longer looking at the symptoms of your like your emotions. We're looking at where are they coming from? Where it's not, yeah.
Where are they
And
coming from? Where
right.
does anger come from? Where does greed come from?
Is there an answer?
Yeah,
There.
yeah. I mean, it's you're now in the relative world, and you're
Hmm.
basically talking about relativity, relational life. They come from previous experiences that you basically managed in a less than fully conscious state.
Oh, like a closing of the heart for
Well,
protection.
or just you weren't aware of something, and so you were clumsy, and now that you have to clean that up. So it's a cascading of cause and conditions and effects, cause and effect. That's called karma.
Reaction.
Yeah, something happens, you react to it with less than total clarity, and attachment and you know aggression, whatever. You then create seeds that are planted in your ecosystem, and then the
Mm,
next time something like that comes up, you're already pissed off at the person. You don't even know them.
right.
You know what I mean? Prejudice, for example. You don't even know this new person, but they remind you of somebody else that you had an unhappy memory of. You know?
Right. Yes. Yes. And it's so weird how we don't, some, like many of us don't pay attention to that, even though we're in it so
We're,
long.
that's why you meditate. You exactly what you just said. You're
Oh,
in it and you're not paying attention to it. So the meditation is just saying, start by slowing the whole chain reaction down.
Oh my
In fact, cutting into it by not doing anything for a while, and just see what comes up. See what comes up, and actually notice it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. That makes so much sense, David. Because I love the idea of the Lojong practice that Pema
Lojong,
talks about. Lojong, thank you.
yeah.
And at first, I was doing it with no benefits to myself. I really, it was just honestly creating more anger. And for those who don't really know the Lojong practice, do you think maybe you could give a short little explanation for it? I don't want to butcher it.
Yeah, okay. Well, in a nutshell, Lojong is a Buddhist practice that evolved over centuries,
Hmm.
mainly in India in around the 8th to 12th century.
Oh,
And
wow.
it got codified into a series of slogans that you can practice around, that you can put on cards and contemplate. And they summarize some aspect of your existence in which you repeatedly muck up an interpersonal dynamic by being too hasty, too selfish, too blind to the consequences. And they give you a little slogan, and then you marinate on that slogan, which is called contemplating. So, for example, don't bring things to a painful point, which is a very classic one.
Hmm.
You're talking to somebody and you just can't wait to get to the point where you say, you tell them how they screwed you up. And now the conversation is completely
Right.
disrupted because you brought it to a painful
Yeah.
point. Or you say to somebody, how did you get that scar on your forehead? And it happened in a war or an accident. You're bringing everybody's attention to something that is going to just only cause discomfort. So it says, don't do that. And then you notice how you tend to do that in such situations. So it's kind of on the
It's
job
hard.
training, Loshan. You
It
contemplate
is.
it off the job, and then when you're on the job, those things come up repeatedly. There's another one, don't expect applause. How many things do
Mm.
we do just because we want to be seen, recognized? You just do the right thing. That's all. And it doesn't matter if one person's watching or nobody's watching.
Oh, yeah.
Do the right thing.
And it's crazy how much that makes you feel better.
It
Selfishly.
is it is a side benefit. You do it for the benefit of others, and then you realize that you're happier when you're benefiting others. It's one of the great joys of life. You know it it's no it, all you have to do is be a parent to know that.
Ah,
You
yeah.
have a little somebody just a student just sent me a picture of their new baby, and you look at this little baby. Well, I don't even. It's not even my baby. I'd do anything for that baby right away. What do they need? You
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. So that and we can keep that feeling going for people that we don't know that well, and people maybe that we've had an annoying exchange with, and just feel like on some level you do really want them to be happy. It's
Yeah.
the closest thing to your own heart, and it's challenging then, because when you get into in Lojong, when you get into the most challenging part is when you realize that you don't want that person to be happy no matter what.
Yeah.
You want revenge, you want justice, you want whatever you want. Um, I mean, that you could say the ultimate revenge is would be working for the happiness of others is the best way to get revenge.
Duncan said that to me one time. Duncan said
Really?
that to me one time. Yeah.
Good for you,
Yeah.
Duncan.
He's
Yeah.
like, you want to do, you tell yourself, I'm going to become so good. I'm going to become such a good artist and all of this so that this guy will feel bad for hurting me. And people think that that is revenge, the right way of revenge. And like people think that that's like a positive way of
Yeah, yeah.
channeling
And it's
revenge.
just very wound up on itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
And not in a healthy way.
exactly.
Not healthy.
Yeah. No, that's not right.
But it is profound. I want to go on record, since we're on record here, and somebody might be listening
Mhm.
to this 500 years from now. It's true. It's possible. Go on record as saying it's hard. It's hard to, in any of the traditions, turn the other cheek. All of them have this Mahayana dimension to it. That's one thing all the religions have in common, is a Mahayana or compassionate arc to it. They may formulate the sense of self differently, or the cosmology might be different, but there are none of them that say, yeah, and you shouldn't love your neighbor, or I mean, they're all pushing some
Mm,
way of Mahayana Bodhisattva kind of activity, but it's really hard. When you meet a great Bodhisattva, you should bow down as low as you can go.
mm, wow. Yeah, and I mean, I think once you kind of start to understand this aspect of all of this, I think it starts to make more sense to you. Like war starts to make sense. And that's a very tricky one, I think. Because that's where it's the most difficult. Wouldn't you agree? Like, when like war, like that's so hard to turn the other cheek when
The
you have
aggression has
war.
gotten out of hand.
Hmm.
And it's interesting how passion can turn into aggression, like jealousy.
Yeah.
You love somebody, but you love them in such a possessive way that you want to hurt somebody else who also loves them or who they love. We our basic emotions are healthy and good, but they have a knot in them. Like it's like a hose that has a knot in it. The water can't flow through cleanly.
Oh.
So it's very hard to imagine anger being a healthy emotion, but it can be.
Oh.
Passion can be healthy,
Right. Yeah, and
but
that
they're usually twisted. There's too much. It's too it's gotten too complicated for you to simply love somebody and then also realize that that means you want them to be happy. That's what love is, actually.
right.
It's not you
And
want them to do what you want them to do. That's not really love, is it?
right now. Neither
That's
is
that's
it
that's possession.
right. Yeah, neither is it doing it so that they will do something back or like this kind of weird contract that you have with people.
Yeah, I don't think that's pure love. I mean,
That's interesting.
it's human as hell, that's
It's
for sure.
human. Yes.
And it has in it the seeds of a, higher love, which is um, very hard for us because we are really in a situation in which we have the maximum potential to fuck up and to obtain enlightenment. That's called the human being.
Mm, wow. Right. And that's why when we look at the wheel of birth and death, in the center we have passion, ignoring, and aggression.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah, and waking up is um very like how are there any instructions for waking up? I mean, is it just
Yeah.
meditating?
Yeah. There's the whole Buddhist canon, the whole Buddhist doctrine and tradition is a recipe for waking up.
Mm,
And in that recipe it says you should have a teacher, Buddha. You should study the Dharma, which is the teachings, and you should have a community of like-minded people that you're working with.
mm,
The three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
rituals.
So again, I'm I love it when somebody says I spontaneously awakened somewhere or whatever. But somebody who's studied like a tradition like Buddhism really deeply for many, many decades and has taken it to heart and really trying to implement it at the fullest level, they're not only helping themselves, but by assimilating that and learning how to communicate to somebody else, they're allowing a tradition to survive for 2,500 years that kind of notably has helped a lot
Mm,
of people. I think you could say Buddha, some of the religions have caused harm. I think you'd have the hardest argument to make about
right.
that with Buddhism. It's not, there's no wars that we fight. There's no holy war. There's no justifiable aggression. It's fundamentally non-aggressive. Uh, and the worst thing you could say is people got caught up in their own philosophy or something like that, lost track. But it seems like it has caused some benefit in the world.
Interesting.
In my perception of it, it seems to be mostly beneficial, and with some critique that you could
Yes.
add, but mostly beneficial.
Yeah. And here's something that I was kind of juggling with, or kicking around. The idea of, let's say we are in a dream sleeping, everybody is sleeping, and the quality of awakeness is more literal. I don't know. But you start thinking of um like did the Buddha ever ref like I think you were just saying that actually like okay, I'm just gonna say this. If people are having a good dream and they don't want to wake up, I think Maharaji, Ramdas's guru, the first thing he told Ramdas was don't tell people about me when you go back to America. And, and there
And
seems to be
don't order a pickle and a delicatessen, you know.
you can
I
say that.
mean, you know, those things are so cute in a way, and they become embodied in the lore of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, Ramdas sometimes seems like the kind of being that, you know, when you have kids who you do negative. Do you have any children?
No, not yet.
Not yet. So you tell them don't do that, and that's the thing they'll do, you know.
Yeah.
So right,
Okay.
I forget what it's called, negative reinforce, you know,
Reverse
uh,
psychology, maybe?
reverse psychology. That's exactly right. Did they try that on you? Did they do that on you?
Who?
Your parents or whoever?
Oh, my parents? That's, dude, I don't know. Maybe. I think so.
Yeah, you know, so it's very interesting when you have great teachers. The lore that gathers around them is usually the narrative that a number of different students carried away, and you hear that they use all kinds of different ways and means called skillful means on different
Mhm,
people. Some like there are some teachers who somebody would say so kind to me and so gentle, and the other person say
mhm,
that person was so ruthless with me and you know kind of really pushed me hard. um, you know, and so in Dharma Moon, when we talk about skillful means, you know, we're trying to look at what would be effective with that particular situation.
mm. But you're not really changing boats, right? You're just kind of ex like going deeper into the one you're
Yeah,
in.
the essence is communication of the truth of the situation is what you're trying to get going on. But
Yeah.
because of our ways of looking at things, some people, you know, tough love works better with some people than gentleness. You know,
Mhm.
there was one teacher named Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche who was one of Trungpa Rinpoche's teachers,
Oh, wow.
and one of the students, who's now a famous Rinpoche, said he literally killed me with kindness. I couldn't take it. He was so nice to me and so
Whoa.
kind to me that it just cut me down. I had no defense. And other teachers, you know, like I know teachers with
Mhm.
like in the history of it, Milarepa, his teacher Marpa really, by today's standards, it would qualify as abuse. He just pushed him really, really hard. But the guy had really bad karma and had
Mhm.
murdered people and stuff. So he needed to, you know, kind of refine that ground beyond that. So yeah, the stories of teachers and students are amazing that way. But my assumption is, and my bias is, that it's for the benefit of the student, not for the benefit of the teacher.
Oh, that's amazing, actually. Yeah, because what would Maharaji have to gain from
If he
people
has
not
something to
really?
gain, it's one of it's not a great configuration because if teachers
Yeah.
have too much to gain, you know, the setup is they can you know create a very imbalanced relationship with us with a too
Hmm.
eager student and a narcissistic teacher is not a good combination.
Yes.
Not
Okay.
protected,
Of
not protected.
course.
Yeah.
Right. And when you started mentioning teachers, I couldn't help but think of this psilocybin mushroom strain that's called golden teacher. And when you
Oh,
start
it
talking
is. Huh?
about abuse, yeah, there's many different kinds, but this is a very popular one that it's a psychedelic mushroom that it's called golden teacher.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, uh, I don't think it could substitute for a real teacher, but maybe there's a little bit of the same qualities of abusiveness and tailoring to yourself and helping you kind of yeah, doing that kind of same thing that teachers do sometimes.
Well, and psychedelics can be quite wrathful.
Yep.
In my experience of using them, it's not always like, hey, I'm listening. You know, in the old days, we used to take LSD and listen to a new Beatles album. You know, and then go for a walk on the beach. But if you're using it in a context of spiritual practice or something like that, they can give you a tough night. They can put you. I know friends who are taking
Mhm.
psychedelics with therapists, with clinicians, and with psychiatrists, and they have to process some very challenging things. There's no getting around it. It'll put it right in front of you. So yeah, I don't do that anymore. I mentioned that to you. I think
Mhm.
it's not part of my current journey. I don't
Yeah.
have any attitude one way or the other about it, and I certainly have related to it in the past.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think there's no escaping ultimately who you are. You cannot escape from who you are.
Mm. The
No
wisdom of
matter
no
what you
escape.
take, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, there you are.
There you are.
All the layers of it, all the history, all the previous incarnations, all of it is there.
And is Buddhism kind of trying to take the idea that you are here, but you don't have to be here with all of the suffering, maybe?
Yeah, you
Um,
don't. It's saying that the
mhm.
suffering is relational. It has a history, it's karmic, and by
Right.
changing the cause and conditions, you can change your relationship to the suffering and liberate yourself from unnecessary suffering. That's exactly what it's saying. It's not saying it's a happy pill and you'll sleep better. That's all bullshit, basically, on a certain level. It's
Yeah.
to really connect deeply with the cause of suffering and liberate the causality of that kind of suffering. Uh, Now, if that happens to make you happier and sleep better, so be it.
Mm, yeah.
That's not the goal.
Interesting. Oh,
As far as I'm
yeah.
concerned, I should just explain that,
Yeah.
it's not about superficial happiness being layered over. And so that,
Really?
for the time being, you're kind of okay. And there's nothing wrong with techniques that induce relaxation and health. Uh,
Right.
but I know personally, for sure, sometimes optimizing health and relaxation is not going to be the optimal stroke for your spiritual practice.
Right. Yeah, because I kind of made a joke in my last podcast where I was like, you could technically get comfortable in hell, you know? You could like find some cool shoes or something in there.
Yeah, find some cool shoes in hell. That's a good chapter title.
Yeah.
That's really funny, Eric. You could find some cool shoes in hell. People do find cool shoes in hell. It's called the God realm.
Oh.
I was in Antigua last month, and there's a lot of rich people there, and there's like thousands of yachts out, and some of them were like gigantic. And you go, okay, well, those people have got it made for a while, for sure. They've got everything. They've got chefs and custom this and custom that. But the last thing I saw when I left there, after, by the way, contracting COVID there in the God realm, so you can be in the hell realm in the God realm. That would be one way of saying it. The last thing I saw was a little CNN report at the airport on this couple that was very rich and very successful, and they had been on their yacht, and then some criminals kidnapped them, and they haven't found them or the boat since then. So it's almost like it was targeted towards saying you can have this, but it's impermanent, and it can quickly convert into its opposite. So that's why the beautiful young people like yourself, we're not promoting the God realm. We're promoting real awareness and real intelligence. And you know,
Wow.
I personally, don't advocate the kind of spirituality that just creates a temporary result of a pleasurable outcome. But nor do you want to make people miserable. That's called sadism. That's not the point either.
Another great example of that was the Titanic submarine.
What
You,
happened there?
oh, you didn't hear about the submarine? They're like this bunch of billionaires took this self-driven submarine to the bottom of the Titanic to see the Titanic, and it exploded. The submarine exploded.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't read the newspaper closely enough. They didn't
Yeah.
know the karma they were taking on there. That's true.
Yeah,
That's
and
funny.
I think they knew that they were I don't know actually. Maybe they didn't know that they were gonna die. But But I think this could be another great teaching is the idea that you are falling, but there is no floor, there is no end to the falling.
Well, that's Trungpa Rinpoche there. The
Oh,
bad news is you're falling through space without a parachute.
oh,
And the good news is there is no ground.
there's no ground. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are subtle things. We I think there's so much room now for people to just be honest, genuine, curious,
Mhm.
smart, challenging, um, but disciplined and respectful. And
Yeah.
you're going to have a whole great wave of wonderful kind of Dharma people that I think they're spawning right now upriver, and I'm very optimistic about this possibility. Um, but
Mhm.
it's going to require a kind of very fresh mind, very curious, prajna,
Mhm.
intelligence, not it's not going to be like somebody invents a new way or a new bill of goods and everybody goes, okay, finally we found the magic pill. There's no magic pill
Mhm.
where I come from.
That's
There's
the
no
Apple
magic
Vision Pro, the new Apple
pill.
Vision Pro.
Yeah, you put the helmet on,
Solved. You're not here anymore. Of
well, and I also want to take a moment, if I could, to
course.
invite your friends to come and visit us at dharmamoon.com, which
Of
is our
course.
platform. And we have a couple of things coming up that I think people could really check out. Um, Starting March 22nd, which will be pretty soon from when you watch this, is our spring mindfulness meditation teacher training program, which so many of Duncan's friends and allies have taken. And
Hmm.
um, you can come and just take the first weekend of that and see if you like it. It's all on the website at dharmamoon.com. And the other thing is we're having a live retreat, which is the first thing we've done since the pandemic that's non-virtual.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
May 1st to May 5th at Menla Institute. That's also on the website. And we're going to be talking about some really wonderful, energizing practices called wind horse practice.
Ooh.
And, I just feel like the reason I know you is because of these, sequence of connections of people who are just out there exploring, and we recognize each other and we want to help each other. So I've tried to create this platform, Dharma Moon, that is something that where people can go and find like-minded people and continue to study and practice Dharma. So please do come and visit us. And Eric, it's very moving to me to meet people like you. I have to have you understand that.
Yeah, thank you, David. I mean, that's insane coming from you, man. Honestly, thank you. It's
Um, you,
unbelievable.
you're the you're the reason I get out of bed in the morning.
Hmm.
There's a great,
Yeah.
great wave coming, and it's either going to wash over us and we're going to drown, or we're going to surf it
Hmm.
into some kind of healthy future. And
Oh, wow.
and we know when you go around the wheel, at a certain point you can't be the one who's going to direct the wave anymore, and that is the wisdom of age. Um, it's a sort of tender feeling too, that sort of like a grandfatherly feeling. Like I just saw my granddaughter Izzy, who's 6 years old, and you go, okay, well, that's going to be who's going to be,
Mhm.
and so anything I can do to help and support you, I would be happy to do, Eric. So just you let me know, okay?
I mean, that's what you were at one point, right? You were me at one point, man.
I
Except you
was
were
you.
with except you were with Chögyam Trungpa, Jerry Garcia, Stevie Wonder.
Well, I do have a very strong feeling of the wheel going around and a kind of
Oh,
a connection of
yeah, me too.
attitude, energy, the music thing coupled with the slightly rebellious thing. We were very
Hmm.
rebellious. Um,
Oh,
but also, you want to recognize that uh, you do leave footprints on the earth. You don't just float over it. And so even starting very young, you go, well, uh, what how do I want to contribute to the flow of history? And you're doing that right now by doing what you're doing. So I work a lot with people. I wrote Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck, and I work with people to help them develop their sense of journey
Mhm.
and fulfillment. So I just want to thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And just real quick, for your on your way to the door, just a little question. How can you tell that you're enlightened and that you're ready to go spread this enlightenment to all sentient beings?
Is this a joke?
I don't know.
It's a great setup for a joke. You know, a guy walks into a bar and the bartender says, "How can you tell if you're enlightened and ready to spread this?" You know, um, yeah, there was this movie, I, Robot, with Will Smith. You remember it? And this
Great movie.
hologram, this guy is killed in the beginning, and the hologram comes up and somehow Will Smith can communicate with it and say, like, what happened to you, who killed you? You're gonna have to figure that out. The guy's a detective. And then Will Smith asks this guy who's dead a question, and the guy says, wrong question. And then he asks, do you remember this? And then he asks a different question. He says, now you're getting warm. So
Oh.
I'll just reframe your question if you're going to walk into the bar. How can I tell what my true purpose in being alive in this human body at this time is?
Oh, beautiful.
And ask yourself that. Don't ask somebody else.
Ah, and be honest.
Be honest and love everybody and tell the
Love
truth.
everyone and tell the truth. That's it. Love everyone and tell the truth.
Yeah, but I heard a follow-up to that, which may be a good closing moment from my friend Ramesh, who was there. He said there was something, of course, Maharaji said to Ramdas, who was having a hard time, love everybody and tell the truth. Ramdas, as you know, said, the truth is, Maharaji, I don't love everybody. Now, I thought in my detective mind, there must be a third iteration. And I asked Ramesh this weekend, and I said, what happened next? And he said, Maharaji did lean over to Ramdas and say, work on it a little bit at a time and I'll help you.
Whoa.
Which is a profound instruction. And I just wondered why I'm going up to Garrison Institute to play with KD Krishnadas this weekend.
Oh,
And I'm going to ask him, did you hear that part of the story? Because to me, that's a profound instruction. I don't know if I can do this enlightenment thing. Work on it a little bit at a time and we'll help you. Is a brilliant and utterly meaningful. That brings the exchange fully back around to the person who asked the question.
Exactly, because the guru is not in the body.
Oh, the guru is in a body. At that point, the guru is sitting right in front of him, telling that. It's his
Okay.
body saying it.
So you think he was like saying like,
I get that this is hard, but if you work on it gradually and cultivate those things, I will support you. I will help you.
there's people that can help you.
Yeah, and other people will help you, and other people will challenge you, and other people will help you by being obstinate and difficult. Just the hardest kind of help to appreciate.
Right. And then you get maybe into the idea that everybody becomes the guru.
That's right. Literally true. Literally, including a mosquito.
Oh.
Including a mosquito that's buzzing around your head while you're trying to meditate.
This too.
Yeah, if you can see that, then you'll bring, your full awareness towards the idea that you are actually the idea of being enlightened, going back to the bar and you asked that question, actually the idea is more claustrophobic than you think. It's more possible than you think. It's more possible even than you really want it to be, because it means that you have to lean into it and kind of do the work and recognize your actually very, very good qualities and good nature. So yeah, the guru can be claustrophobic is the long story short on that one, including the universal guru. The universe can be claustrophobic.
Right. Yeah. Even though it's all space. That's why it's called practice. Hey, I love it.
All right, I got to get going because we're having an info session in an hour
Yes, of course.
about our retreat. So
David, thank
Thank you
you.
again. So
Thank you,
please
man.
keep doing what you're doing, and I'll see you around the
I
campus.
will.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Bye. Have a good day.